Greetings, cyberspace cadets. It's IRATE Prostate here for another week of hot takes with BigFATBrian. How's it going, bud?
What up, fam?
That's right. That lovely entrance. All right, so this week is the true crime week where we let the people vote on it, and they wanted to hear about killer Anders Breivik. So do you want to talk about the show first and then talk about him, or what do you want to do?
Well, why don't we talk about the show first? Because I really think that getting a proper grasp on the way the documentary was portraying Anders Breivik and the type of people that were in it is probably the best way to review this episode. Mostly because I think that like any documentary, there was a bit of a lean, one way, and I also think that it may not. I mean, to be fair, it's a 45-minute documentary, and that's sort of hard to do on its own. But I think they left a lot of things out.
Yeah, it was cut. It looks like it was cut for like a 1 hour TV series at the so it's got the breaks for commercials and stuff. So we didn't get a whole hour. You're absolutely right. They left a lot of shit out, man. They didn't go near as deep as they could. And I was reading some of the reviews on Netflix, and they were not flattering. There was occasional 4 or 5 stars, but most of them were 1 star. When they had the old star rating system. So,
that rating system you gotta get to now that it's hidden all the way in the back of the details.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it was really weird because I thought they had gotten rid of it altogether, but no, it's still there.
I just imagine the Netflix rating system is like a musty old porn shop that you got to go to the back room to find the good stuff.
or yeah, when you said musty, I thought about Amy Schumer for some reason.
Yep.
I mean, because she's the reason that they changed it, and just made it a thumbs up, or did you give it a thumbs up or not? So yeah, this so the show was like real. It was interesting because I was like looking at the people that they interviewed, right? And here's the deal. We're going to do a real fast deal. Anders Breivik was this nutbag who set off an explosion in Norway to divert the authorities so he could go to this island where these kids were in a political indoctrination camp is really what it is, man, right? And it's a left-wing political party camp for teenage kids, and he went and he shot a whole shitload of people. The death toll was total 77. All right.
Well, yeah. So some say 77, and a couple others say like 93, based off of like deaths after the fact, from injuries.
Yeah, from injuries from the explosion, or from gunshots.
Both.
Yeah. So, all right. So when I looked at the show, I noticed that the interview. Okay, there were 2 shrinks that were interviewed that had nothing to do with the crime. They were just now analysts, right? That hot Greek chick, and then the one that looked like drunk Santa, right? Right, and then there was a British journalist who was, not relevant to it at all. She just was talking about it, in third person, like she had written, she had just reported it, right? Do you want to say something about her?
Well, okay, yeah. So she had just reported it, and like we had talked about earlier, she wasn't part of anything. There was literally you might as well have had somebody in California reporting on like a bombing in Utah. That's she said that she was in the city when it happened.
No. This is a different one I'm talking about. All right.
Oh,
that's the one. This is the one with the long hair. You're talking about the
short blonde hair.
The one with the short blonde hair who presents herself as someone related to the incident, right? What she was, she was right. She was in a building, 2 buildings over from where the bomb went off, right? So she experienced the blast from a shaking motion in her fucking office, or she reported on television probably, and she had gone to the island as a teenager, right? So she was evidently, a member of their Labor Party, which translates into, their version of what we would say would be Democratic
Party,
right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that was the other thing that I was like, you are talking about a political camp for children, and why is there a political camp for children? That doesn't make any sense. It seems you are not wrong about indoctrination, which, I'm going to start by saying Anders Breivik, he did a horrible thing. It's horrific. That amount of death is, any death is really unacceptable, but holy shit, you got to be fucking some sort of psychopath to kill that many people, and not just they weren't all lined up or anything,
Oh no, let's put this on. Of course, what he did was horrible, and he was a horrible person. All right, but what I was trying to illustrate is that the people that are talking on this series. The only people that they talked to were 4 people that were directly affected by the crime. Right? Yeah. There was the soccer star attorney guy that was severely injured when the bomb went off. Right? He was on his way to go into the building. He was in law school at the time. Right? Mm-hmm. All right. And then on the Utoya survivors, Utoya Island is the island where they had the camp. Right? There was this plump blonde chick who hid in a building with if the guy had gone into the building, he would have had 50 targets set right there for him. She said it was ridiculous. It was, some type of something was looking over him. And then there was this guy that was swimming, and he decided to go and swim out as far as he could to try to make it to the other side. I don't think he made it to the other side, but I think the fact that he went swimming he would figure, well, this fucker's going to die anyway. He's going to drown to death.
Yeah, so really don't have much of a choice there.
And then there was the guy who I thought was the most interesting one, and they really didn't even touch on this shit, was the guy that there was a phone call that Breivik was posing as a police officer, right? And they have to use a ferry boat to go from the island to the mainland and pick up this quote police officer who's dressed in a fucking wetsuit.
All
right, he's dressed in a wetsuit. He has got he's got a pistol on his hip. He's got body armor on, right?
Full body armor,
and he's carrying a rifle. Okay. And no badge, right? So they take him anyway. And this kid, that was what was fascinating me, man, was like, why don't we talk to him more? Because I want to know what his rationale was, and to thinking there's something fucked up about this dude.
Right? No, I totally agree. I was sitting there, and me and my girlfriend watched this documentary together. So I was sitting there, I'm like, in my eyes, had I pulled up my boat for this police officer and he's alone in body armor, at least here in America, the police, if they're wearing body armor and they've got a fucking rifle and everything, they're not alone. They're never alone.
Right.
So that would have been the first red flag. Like, why is this guy alone?
Right. And there was no police car parked nearby or anything.
Nothing.
You know, there was nothing, and he basically says this stuff, and they don't explore it, which I thought was very interesting. Maybe they did this because of the time consideration, but to be honest, I think that 42 minutes is not enough time to go into any of these crimes in an in-depth manner. Okay, and that's my criticism of this series. All right. Now, if we want to rewind and talk about Brevik a little bit, is there anything else you want to bring up about what you saw?
Well, yeah. So, okay. So, back to the boat thing again. Right before we switch over to Brevik, I really feel like, you know, how can you imagine how that guy feels immediately after, when he finds out that Brevik killed all those people, right? That he gave the guy a ride to this place, even though, you know, like you have to think in the back of his mind something. He probably thought something might be up. And when me and my girlfriend were talking about it, she's like, well, you know, maybe it's culturally different there because they are sort of a more trusting society, more of a, like, these things, you could tell by the way that people were talking, these things don't normally happen there. So,
yeah, and their history with World War II is something that not a lot of people know about either, and I can get into that a little bit if you want to. But
oh yeah, let's do that.
Okay, well, when it came to World War II, they saw themselves as siding with the Germans. I think Hitler made a deal with the king that, you know, that he would allow the king to remain in power, you know, if they helped him out, right? So they got all these German. They had some Russian stuff. They had actually fought off a Russian occupation earlier, like 5 or 10 years before that, right, when Stalin tried to invade them.
Oh yeah. No, I know about how they hated the communists.
Right, exactly. And what's funny is flipped over because of that guilt, right? Because they collaborated with the Nazis. They flew, you know, 109s. They flew 109s with the symbol for Norway was a swastika in a blue circle, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of narrows down what side that they were, you know, what they were allying themselves with, right? Yeah. Got to say, hey, Goat Man, what's up, dude? So that, yeah, so part of this shit is probably that, you know, that Germany thing, because it seems like that they've gone so fucking ridiculously, you know, to the left. Politically, that I think that's part of the reason this crime happened. You know. Yeah.
No, I completely agree with you. That, I mean, it's clear Anders Breivik was an extremist. There's no doubting that. You don't end up killing that many people and not call yourself an extremist. But,
no, right, exactly. They pointed out that in 1980, the amount, there was like 10,000 immigrants in the whole country, and by 2010 it was 180,000 immigrants. You know, so there was he was obviously obsessed with this shit, right?
Well, yeah. So, okay. So, do you know the history of sort of how that happened when they joined the EU and everything?
Well, no. You know what? I'm going to play. Go ahead and tell me, because I don't know everything.
Well, I mean, I'm not super. I don't have a huge in-depth thing, but I know that they joined in 1994, and around 2008 is when they started talking about accepting like refugees and immigrants in large numbers. And then like 2000, I believe it was 2010 or 2011 when they really started seeing increases in the amount of refugees and immigrants that they were taking in. And you know, there was, they call it a far right sentiment, but there was a decent amount of sentiment for Norwegian nationalism, and that's you know, when you look at it, that's something that if you're looking at Anders Breivik and the fact that he portrayed himself as a successful man, but wasn't really that successful, if you are, let's say manic or have a certain ideology, then that's just going to be inflammatory to anything you had already started planning. So, this is obviously not an excuse for what he was doing, but it's something that certainly added fuel to the fire.
Right. So he writes this manifesto, basically, reiterating Mein Kampf shit. The first half of it really is like a Q&A where he asks himself questions that he thinks that the public are going to. The dude thinks he's going to be famous and shit, right, from this thing. Yeah. So the manifesto begins with this is me thing, right? And it's an over-idealized version of who he was. The dude wasn't very successful. He was an average person. He had several business ventures that failed. It's a typical, what I would say, a typical profile for a person to develop an intense hatred for the situation, that they're living in, and they're going to blame that hatred on somebody, right? And in his case, it was the immigrants, and the people who allowed the immigrants were even worse. He saw them, and there's pictures here of of victims and stuff. So it's like, if anything is too heavy, just focus on what we're saying. But there's, the dude did a horrendous fucking thing. I mean, and he was, see, what bothers me is the fact that he was diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic, which I don't see at all. Usually,
no, not at all.
Usually schizophrenics are so disorganized, they can barely, because they're like a person with severe ADHD, and all of the stimulus that they're, responding to is inside of their head, right? So they're so busy, not knowing what to do, and hearing these voices and shit. It's like usually if they kill somebody, it's in a response to feeling threatened physically, right? They don't go out and systematically plan and do a killing on this, especially something on this scale. It's a ridiculously huge scale. The thought about putting in the car bomb, he over a series, over 3 months, he built up enough, fertilizer and fuel to make what's called ANFO, which is the bomb the type of bomb material that Timothy McVeigh created and used in a similar. He used the exact same idea. I don't know if he was influenced by McVeigh, because they really didn't get into that.
Well, I mean, so McVeigh more so wrote about I might be confusing him, but I'm pretty sure he was the one that wrote about like technology and how that was going to affect the future of mankind.
Mm-hmm.
But I could be wrong on that one. But yeah, so they didn't really have the same motivations, but they certainly used the same tactics.
Yeah, boy, I think he saw that, and he used that purely as a diversionary tactic. So he could go to this island, because he really saw that it was the next generation of liberals, all right, for lack of a better word, we're going to be the ones that were going to destroy his fucking country. This is what this dude's insane. So he believes, all right, if I go to this island where they're all like located, and they weren't all located right there, right? But I mean, it was a liberal, Labor Party indoctrination camp, and it was, there was almost 180. People there, most of them, children and teenagers.
a direct quote from him was that he wanted to hit them where it hurt them the most, which is why he went after their children.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, like, even in his manifesto, he wrote, "I spent a total of 9 years of my life working on this project." So, like, back to the whole point of schizophrenia,
right?
There's no way. There's just no way. He literally planned everything out. It was all organized, and he made sure to do it in such a fashion. Even the boat ride to the island, he knew that the cops weren't going to be able to get there very quick. He planned everything to a T, and it's almost, you know, they don't know why he stopped shooting, right? And it's almost as though he planned at a certain number he was going to just stop shooting.
Yeah, because he gets on the cell phone and says, "Look, I've killed all these people. I'm ready to surrender to the authorities. I'm done.
Yeah,
come and get me." And so maybe he thought he was going to play out in the court of public opinion. Maybe, I don't know. So there's no telling, you know, what was going on. So he goes to court, and they, you know, when judgment is rendered, all right, for the deaths of 77 people. This shows you how liberal this country is. This guy gets 20 years. It's 21 years total, and I don't understand why they say this, because they said that they didn't see him ever getting out, and it's like the dude is going to be like 52 years old when he gets out.
Yeah, he's not even going to be that old,
right? You know.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't know much about the Norwegian prison system. Maybe they have to go through like an appeal to get out of their sentence to see if they've reformed or served enough time or something. But I do know that, you know, as a side note to this whole documentary, I've read a couple of articles that say that he was able to use a PS3 in prison, and he was other than being able to communicate with other prisoners, because in 2016 he sued the Norwegian government for inhumane treatment of a prisoner, which is the most ironic fucking thing on the planet. Like, holy shit, this guy, the fucking balls on this motherfucker, because dude, you killed so many people and you're gonna fucking sue them for inhumane treatment? Are you kidding me? Like,
dude, man, he's lucky he's fucking alive, man. I mean,
right?
he would have got the death penalty in most places, I would think. You know, if it was the United States, I think he would have gotten the death penalty for sure. Even if there wasn't a death penalty, you know, I think it would become a federal thing or some shit. Well, they try to give the needle that motherfucker.
Dude,
you know?
if he had done this in America, they wouldn't have made it to court. He would have been shot right there.
Yeah, like, probably.
I mean, all you need is the literal video footage evidence of him parking the truck and walking away before he bombed the place, and then all of the video footage of him throughout the entire time shooting those people, and the hundreds of witnesses that saw him. So that I don't even think he would have made it to court. I think they would have just shot him right on the spot.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, there's just one picture that keeps popping up. I'm maybe try to get this thing to.
Cut it out.
No, it's some strong imagery, man. I mean, there's you know, there's people with blood on them. I think there's a couple of deceased children in here, man, young people. So,
well, like I said, I think you know, if you list this under education, because this is this is really, this is a documentary about something that actually happened.
You're actually right.
Yeah, so I think you should be good. But I think the audience is pretty aware of what Anders Breivik did. It was everywhere, and I did want to talk about the media coverage when this happened, right?
Right.
So I remember this. This is back in the days when I was playing World of Warcraft, so I was on the internet constantly.
Well, didn't he play Warcraft?
Yeah. Well, that was the weird thing about this documentary. It almost was like they tried to shape it that he became this extremist because of the video games. It was like, no, no. That is not how this works. He did not become an extremist because of the video games. He clearly was already sort of extreme. I mean, you could see if this guy started planning this before World of Warcraft existed. So, that part of the documentary I completely disagree with.
Yeah, that doctor, she's a Greek lady, very attractive shrink, but she was like, she says something to the effect of like, when he stopped, it was almost like he had finished the game or something. And she was trying to relate Warcraft. She didn't even know Warcraft's not a first-person shooter game,
Yeah, she was talking like it was. Yeah.
Yeah, right. She was talking like World of Warcraft was like fucking, like a first
violent combat.
Violent combat first-person shooter. And everybody that's played it knows it's fucking, it's not first person. It's it's that. I don't even know how to classify it. It's like 3D.
It's essentially an RPG where you have like turn-based combat that's based on timers. So
gotcha.
You turn your attack on, and you attack every 1.2 seconds or whatever, and then you have skills based on timers.
Right, and that's exactly not like a
first-person shooter,
like Call of Duty or something like that. Which might have been a better example. But then again, that's not the game he was obsessed with and played all the time. It was World of Warcraft. So I think she was really reaching, trying to connect it to video games. I think that his, if playing video games might have saved his ass, might have saved those children's lives or something. That's arguable.
I really, I honestly don't think that it mattered either way. I really don't think the video games had any influence on this. I mean, you can just so we're clear, I do have a couple of quotes from him, so you get an idea of the type of person he was, right? Let's see here. Let's find a good one. Okay. And this is a quote from his manifesto. Around year 2000, I realized that the democratic struggle against the Islamization of Europe and European multiculturalism was lost. It had gone too far. 40 years of dialogue with the cultural Marxists and multiculturalists had ended up as a disaster. It would now only take 50 to 70 years before we, the Europeans, are in a minority. As soon as I realized this, I decided to explore alternative forms of opposition. Protesting is saying that you disagree. Resistance is saying you will put a stop to this. I decided I wanted to join the resistance movement. So, he talks about this being in 2000 that he was talking about this. So he was already on that path.
Right. Yeah. Right. And and some of the details of it that I did sketch out, he had named his Glock Mjolnir for Thor's, Thor's hammer.
Thor's hammer.
And he named the rifle, see if I say this right, Gnijir, which was Odin's spear.
Yes.
and you can tell in the manifesto there was some Norse mythology references in there, and also a reference to this this bizarre group of crusaders that were, I guess, that were probably extended out of Norway. They sound like a smaller version of the Templar, Knights Templar.
Yes, yeah. They also mentioned that throughout some of the articles I read on him. I'm
sorry, I'm laughing. Goatman says I played Leisure Suit Larry back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Oh Lord, where do we can't go anywhere from there.
No, we can't.
Sorry, I interrupted you, man. Please.
Oh no, it's okay. But yeah, so I think that like I said, this documentary, it wasn't the greatest. There could have been so much more, especially when you look into what he was saying. Anders Breivik was definitely an extremist. Some of what he said had some weight, but there's a lot of it in there that is just like, whoa, dude, you that's a bit too far, don't you think? I think that I really get the sense that the society around him, had anyone really been listening to him, they would have figured out that this was going to happen.
Yeah.
Like it really looks like a case of this guy. I mean, he like I said, he did this for 9 years. Nobody noticed him. Like, oh, he's got a van. Oh, he's picked up all these, all this fertilizer. Oh, he purchased a rifle. Oh, he's purchased a armor.
Right, and evidently there was something. I mean, he didn't join the skinheads, which would have been to me, a logical, reach. If he was feeling that way, as in late teens, early 20s, he would have probably gravitated toward that. But he didn't gravitate that way. Go ahead.
So actually in his manifesto he talks about that. He talks about where is the quote? Hold on one sec. Here it is. I don't hate Muslim people, I don't hate Muslims at all. I acknowledge that there are magnificent Muslim individuals in Europe. In fact, I have had several Muslim friends over the years, some of which I still respect. This does not mean, however, that I will accept an Islamic presence in Europe. Muslim individuals who do not assimilate 100% within 2020 will be deported as soon as we manage to seize power. So a bit of a megalomania there. He thought that he was...
Yeah, like he's some type of messiah or something for
commander for sure. He said that in his call.
Right, exactly. He said, I was going to bring that up because what he did was he went to the radio on the boat and he said, police, this is Commander Breivik. I am ready to surrender. So it's like that was some major delusion. I'm sorry. On his part, but once again, when we come back to the diagnosis, I don't see schizophrenia there. I do see definitely paranoid personality disorder, and he might have been maybe bipolar with paranoid features. You'll see that kind of this kind of behavior in somebody in a manic state.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I really do see that a lot because, I mean, somebody who goes manic and gets depressed and goes manic and gets depressed and harps on one thing, specifically the Islamization of Norway, right?
Right, the xenophobia, right.
Xenophobia. They harp on that one thing over and over again. And he said 9 years for planning, right? So 9 years of harping on this one thing over and over again, and in those different states, I can see that's a major build-up to that, and it, like I said, it just truly astonishes me that nobody looked into him.
Yeah, definitely. And if you look at his rifle, Rick, he had a bayonet mounted on it. You know, it was he had these flashlights mounted on. He was, I mean, obviously, you know, he's rigging this thing up to go kill somebody with. You know, and he went through.
You don't go hunting with that.
No, well, you don't. You know, and that's the deal. You know, it's like the bayonet alone gives that away. You know, and it's that's not a hunting weapon. It's just you know, that's just he's gonna do some shit with that, man. It's something horrible. You know, and you know, of course, I'm sure that they interviewed the mother that he was living with. There was something about a divorce having a major effect on him when he was a kid, when he was, you know, very young, and it started when his parents were having a custody battle. Is when his behavior started changing. They noticed that in school, and they talked about putting him in foster care.
Yeah.
You know, which might have been a good thing. You know.
Well, I thought he went into foster care for a small amount of time.
Did they say that? Okay,
yeah,
because
I'm pretty sure he did. Yeah.
All right. Well, then obviously that wasn't a good thing. But he did end up with his mom. You know, which is a lot of these guys that do this stuff, you know, end up with some contorted conceptualizations of their mothers, or the mother helps, you know, cement their distorted, you know, self-concepts, you know, by telling them that they're going to do great things, you know, when obviously, you know, he's just a mediocre person, you know. When you can't, you know, when you can't make friends at school and you're not autistic or something like that, you've got some, you know, there's something going on there. And it's interesting that you know, how many pages was the manifesto?
1,500.
Yeah.
This guy wrote like essentially 3 books worth of a manifesto.
Yeah, and it's all fairly detailed section by section, and it's ordered in a. See, once again, the order that he's got it laid out in is actually logical.
It's very organized. Yeah,
exactly. It's like almost like it was edited or some shit. And it was, you know, of course it was him, and he had a long time to do it. But I'm telling you, a disorganized, you know, schizophrenic could not do that.
No,
they don't. It's impossible unless, you know, if the schizophrenia had been caught and medicated, then they're, you know, the person's capable of living, you know, a life where they can do things like this. But
I don't. I mean, to be this organized and this driven, I don't, because I know those drugs make you really
lethargic. That's the lethargy is one of the main side effects that they keep trying to get rid of, and it don't work. So you know, well, there's been, you know, since Thorazine, I think there's been like 1, 2, 3, I'm going to say 4 or 5 generations of antipsychotics, and they all have the same, you know, but it's less and less. They've been able to, you know, but it's still, you're absolutely right. With that, the energy that it took for him to do all this stuff, the energy it took to write the manifesto, all of that stuff, it just, you know, not even a medicated schizophrenic could have done that. That's for sure. You know.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, it's so crazy. Like, when on a scale of mass murders and mass shootings, and oh, maybe we should talk about why this is considered a serial killer.
And also other people, all right, all right. This thing has been referred to as 3 different things. Okay, he's a serial killer, he's a terrorist, or he's what's called the difference between a mass murderer and a serial killer is a mass murderer usually does it in one big thing.
Yeah,
you know,
like they'd all
like this.
One big, yeah.
You know, so let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, okay, so a couple of sources say that he is a serial killer because of the fact that rather than having all of the people in one big group and shooting them, you know, in just one big go, he premeditated the bomb, and then he sought out people. Like he didn't just shoot a group of people on that island. He shot 7 here, 5 over there, kept going, you know, and so that's what made him a serial killer a serial killer and a mass shooter instead of just a mass shooter.
Okay,
you know?
That's kind of stretching it. I think that he was just. I think he was just like, you know, running down targets, you know, as they scattered, and you know his object was to kill as many people as he could. You know, I don't think that he was stuck on a number or anything, because he wouldn't have known how many people were hurt or injured or killed in the bombing. So that kind of throws that theory out the door, I would think. You know, who knows why he quit? You know, that's just going to be one of the. And then the people that want to politicize it, they call him a terrorist because, of course, he's, you know, the manifesto is pretty much right wing. You know, there's not, you can't get around. It's racist and it's neo-Nazi-ish. You know, without being directly neo-Nazi. You know.
And I think that the you know, neo-Nazi term gets thrown around a lot, but that is a term that definitely does apply to him.
Yeah,
that's that there is no arguing that he is clearly a right-wing extremist and clearly has a lot of neo-Nazi tendencies. So there was that. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second.
Right, yeah, we were talking about, all right, the difference between, was he a mass killer, was he a serial killer, is he a terrorist, right?
Terrorist, that's what I wanted to talk about. I think that he does fall within the definition of a terrorist, a domestic terrorist, because he clearly had a political reason for attacking these people. He had a manifesto, and it was to sort of embolden the right wing of his country and the nationalist sentiment. So that sort of, I mean, that completely falls within the bounds of terrorism.
Right, and then there's the deal that, you know, when we talked about doing this guy, you know, when, you know, we put a poll out, and actually the poll is what voted for this particular person. And, you know, we talked about this, and you said you wanted to look at, there's a mimetic aspect to it. There was all these memes made about him. And and because a lot of right-wing people see this guy as a hero.
Yes, they do.
You know, and that's where this shit gets kind of weird and fucked up, you know, and
it does.
And that reinforces the terrorist political aspect of it.
Well, yeah, and that's why I sort of, you know, I sort of opted out on doing too much regarding the meme aspect of this, because, to be honest, there are a lot of memes that are in favor of him. They've got, like, have you guys ever played League of Legends? Does anyone know about that? So there's a rating for, like, kills, deaths, and assists. It's called the KDA, and it's you've got your kills, that's the first number, slash deaths, and then slash assists. And there were a ton of memes that were out there that were like, you know, 77, 0, and I think 42, and it was like, I mean, I get joking about it and everything, but you shouldn't look at this guy as a hero. He really shouldn't be remembered as that.
Exactly.
What he did was horribly fucked up.
And the people that it's almost as bad as the people that glorify like Charles Manson and shit like that, right?
Exactly.
But and what's really bad is that this guy, he's very camera friendly. He's Manson looks a little crazy. Manson looks a little scary, intimidating and shit. This dude looks like a fucking he's like a Chad, from some university fraternity,
Yep. Well, he's super conscious about his presentation of himself. You saw that with the early life of his when they went through his early life and how he portrayed himself, even though he lived with his mother, right? So he would wear suits and stuff, and you can see that even in court. He presents himself as a respectable person, and I really do think that probably helps. It probably helps the way he's perceived amongst people who consider him like a Chad.
Right. Because there's this one picture of him, man, where he's got this fucking sweater on and he's got the collar on his Izod flipped up,
Yes.
I mean, and that's like, it just rings. And maybe that was part of him during his, business days when he was trying to, hobnob with rich people trying to sell these, get rich quick schemes that he was, getting involved in. So but the main point was, the fact that this guy is camera friendly. He's going to draw that type of, those type of women that are attracted to these murderers and shit. The head scratchers. You know what I'm saying, man? This the fuck.
Well, so there's. And this sort of speaks to the audience that is into true crime novels. There's what's called murder porn, and that is like listening or reading books that are about mass murderers or serial killers and stuff like that. And that's one side of the true crime style of audience. And then there's also another side of the people. Specifically the people that really like to meme Anders Breivik and use him as sort of a hero, and that is that has to do with like it's I don't want to anger anyone here, but it's sort of sad because it has to do with the type of person that's a neckbeard that lives with their mother, that literally has the same sort of home life story that Anders Breivik had,
right,
where they feel rejected by society and they want to blame it on something else, but in reality, and this might, like I said, might also anger some people. You need to clean your room and get a job, like that's just. I mean, at least that's the way I see it.
So you're quoting Dr. Jordan Peterson?
Yes.
Is that what I'm hearing you say? It's really hard to laugh, and when we're talking about this, because unlike everything else that we've covered on this, on this show, this is real deal. This is reality. This is true crime, like it says. It's difficult to display that, that gallows humor that you and I both like to, like to brandish, when we're doing this show, because this shit's really hard to talk about, without, trying to, making it look like we're trying to glorify this guy. Whereas, the deal is that, from an analytical standpoint, just looking at the show, it was like it was a very, very cursory, lazy almost to a degree, I would say.
I agree with that.
Kind of an approach, this kind of like a cut and paste kind of formula. This is, Uzi Q is an addict of the Investigation Discovery Channel, and I've seen 5 or 6 different shows on that channel where we'll see this type of presentation, and some of them are really well done, man, and they're really they go in depth. They talk to actual victims, and they don't get like 1 or 2 sound bites from them and then go to something else. They actually talk to them for 3 or 4 minutes, where here and there, where you get a really accurate picture of what of how these people have been affected, A, and B, what was going on in their minds, when they were experiencing this shit, Yeah,
I completely agree. So I think that they could have done a much better job. Are we for this documentary? Are we having people on, or are we just?
If anybody wants to come on and talk about this show and this case only, yeah.
But overall, if you're looking at this documentary, they miss out on a lot. To be fair, I do blame some of that on time restrictions, but clearly, they did not do enough research to call it a true crime documentary. And I think that we might have to look at that last week of True Crime and maybe find a different series, because I get the feeling that most of the episodes are going to be this way in this series.
Right. I think you're right about that too. We may have to, you and I may have to just go in and then cherry pick, the stuff that's going to be, that we're going to be able to put our brand on. That's kind of like what we're doing here, is that we're making recommendations of what people, should spend their time on. And time is a precious commodity nowadays. It is. For the working Joe, man, that's 42 minutes that they're never going to get back. You know what I'm saying? And if we have to take that hit, that's what this show's all about. We'll take the hit for you and tell you, don't waste your time on this shit. I hate to say that, man, but I'm being honest. I'm shooting straight with this. I've seen better series. Do better shows in the same type of format. In that 42 minutes, they were able to convey something that I walked away from going, holy shit, right? Instead of going, yeah, but.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so I would even say that what we've said here today on this show was more informative than what you could have gotten from that documentary. Because a lot of the documentary was really based around the feels of the people that were involved, or even only slightly involved. They didn't really go into a lot of detail about the actual crime, other than the basic numbers that were already open.
And I argue with the title of this whole series. I don't think we got inside of his mind.
No, we didn't.
To be honest, there was no interviews with him. In something like this, I would expect at least 5 minutes of him, just talking, so we walk away going, God damn, he was fucking crazy,
Yeah.
but we don't get that, and I don't think that either. I don't think the rest of the show is going to do that. See, when you say you're going into the mind of a serial killer, you need to fucking pay off with that thing. Like, give people, a picture of what the mind of this person looks like, and I didn't get that. And I
didn't either.
It may be my history with psych that has got me jaded on this shit, and maybe I'm running a little too hard on it. But I'll be honest, dude. I don't recommend the series based on this episode. Now, fuck, I may watch another one or two episodes of this and go, holy shit, this was the turd in the punch bowl.
I don't think so. I watched a couple of other episodes.
Well, and then when I looked at the reviews, there were 68 reviews on it. We're in the secret review place that's on Netflix. That's almost impossible to find. I found that they were mostly 1s and 2s. And most of them were talking about a lot of repetition over and over and over and over again to say the same thing over and over. And this kind of does it a couple of times. They keep trying to knock home, the impact. But they really didn't show us.
Over reels.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. A feels over reels thing. So we got anybody wanting to hop in? So I'm not seeing anybody in the waiting room.
I'm not seeing anyone. So
we got 5 more minutes.
Maybe we should do our rating. Of the episode at least.
Okay, go for it.
I'm honestly giving it a 3 out of 10. I don't think. I mean, if I can find out more than the documentary told me just in 20 minutes of Googling, then it's not a good documentary, and it's honestly a waste of my time. And that is, you were absolutely right when you said time is precious. I cannot get that 45 minutes back. So I really think that they could have done a way better job. And out of all, I do watch true crime every once in a while, and out of all of the true crimes I've watched, this has been sort of the shittiest.
Yeah, and so all right, so you gave it a 3?
I give it a 3 out of 10. Yeah.
All right, 3 out of 10. All right, so we're going on a basis of 10. I spent like a couple minutes just really kind of breaking down what I thought was wrong with it, from a serious standpoint. We talked about and the killer, and what we learned from the killer was basically what you and I, kind of gleaned off of other sources. There was enough there to get a taste of what this guy was about and what he did. But there's a lot of these questions that were left unanswered. There were interviews that weren't conducted that would have made more sense to get inside his mind. We needed to talk to him, and that did not happen. Okay. And he's one of the few that are living, one of the few cases that are still alive. And maybe they don't want to give him, they'll use some excuse like they don't want to give him a platform.
I got to stop you right there. I'm sorry. They don't want to give him a platform, but they did a documentary on him. I
see,
that's ironic as shit.
Well, and that's the whole fucking point now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, that's the whole point. If we want to get inside this motherfucker's mind, let him talk for 5 minutes. You're going to get a fantastic, opinion of what's, through his own words. So I'm going to be less merciful. I was surprised you gave it a 3. I'm going to give it a 1.5. And I'm being generous,
Well, on my scale, like the lowest numbers and the very highest numbers are reserved for specific things. Anything lower than a 2 is retard babbling. So,
well, yeah, okay, I give you that. This is this is a little above that. You know, it was like a mass produced news story. You know what I'm saying? It was it was a
sanitized version.
Yeah, sanitized mass production. That's right. That's a perfect way to say it. Yeah. So thanks everybody for showing up on the thumbs up and everything. So next week we're gonna do a movie. Okay, that's on currently. It was released this month on Netflix, and when we do this, it'll be next month. So first week is movie week, and we're going to be looking at Tremors: A Cold Day in Hell.
Oh yeah, boy.
Yeah, that's fun. I'm going into this thing like loving Tremors, so they better not fucking let me down, man. That's all I'm saying. All right.
I mean, they still got what's his name in there, the guy that's in all the Tremors movies.
Yeah, man.
So this is bound to be a gold mine.
Definitely, and it's got Stifler in it as one of the main characters in it too. So
it does. I didn't even see that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Stifler's in it too. So just for that alone, it might be worth watching. But if anybody's got any questions, they want to throw in the chat. I've got a suspicion that that I think we've covered everything we can show. Jacob, you say there's a show called Manhunter, and what that is a series based on some books by a guy named John Douglas, who was the man who started the profiling program at the FBI, and that's a series that started last year. Season 2 is coming up, and I'm thinking about, I want to talk to Brian about this, but when season 2 pops out, we might look at both seasons because I thought season 1 was fantastic, especially the way that they depicted. Oh crap! The dude's name just went out of my head.
Ted Kaczynski?
No, it's
sorry. Somebody. I'm sorry.
Let's see. It's the wrong one that it's pulling up. Man under series. God, I can't. I always forget this guy's name because he was just crazy as hell. And there he is. Yeah. All right. Sorry about that.
I have to read this response here. Wait, this is from Straight Sith Mail. Wait, what? They're doing a new Tremors movie? Fuck yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking when I saw that.
Exactly. It shows the beginnings of what's going to end up becoming BTK, but it's God damn it, I can't think of the guy's name, and the guy that does them is just fantastic. This is driving me crazy, and apparently the contact that I picked, I mean, it's got the pictures of the guy right here. Keep talking, Brian. I'm going to find this guy's name if it kills me. Kemper. Oh. Kemper. It's the guy, he killed his mother, decapitated her after.
That's right.
And after he had decapitated like 4 or 5 other women, and he buried them all facing his mother with their mouths open, like they were yelling at her. His name was Edmund Emil Kemper III. And he was portrayed fantastically in the first season. So, it's like at some point they do talk to Charles Manson, and that's going to be interesting too to see how that goes. So yeah, Mindhunter is something that we can look at by request. So if that sounds like something y'all want to see, you got to let us know. And the only way you can do that is by making comments. And
also,
go ahead.
Like and retweet those tweets with our polls on them, because They got that way we know what you guys want. We currently do have a poll out for week 2 of June. That's our anime week. I know that a lot of people are really into anime here, so I think we have. Let me go to the poll right now. On our poll, we have Kekagaguri, One Punch Man, and Sword Guy or Sword Gay. I don't know how that's pronounced, but I'll go ahead and grab a link to that and throw it in our chat so people can go ahead and vote on it.
You mean Sword Guy?
Yeah, whatever you just said.
All right, anyway, I guess with that, everybody, thanks for showing up like you do each week. Brian and I are having a ball doing this, and thanks for reinforcing that for us. We are, happy to do this for you. It's we
really appreciate you guys. I mean, I have a lot of fun, and I'm sure IRATE has a lot of fun as well doing this, and I love the fact that you guys show up and interact with us. It's amazing.
It is, and it's very fun. And it's like I said last week, it's more fun than a barrel of chocolate dildos. So
exactly,
you know what I'm saying. So
cherry sauce on them.
That's right. And with that, I'm going to say this is IRATE Prostate out, Space Cadet, Cyberspace Cadets, and Brian.
Thug Life fam.